Thank you, Kirsten. Thank you for the invitation and the vision to put this GAiN together here in Europe. It's about time we don't have to travel halfway across the world to talk about these things. It's right here. Hello! I hope you are as excited as I am about the possibilities in the future. I want to start as my friend Willy. He's my brother, by the way. As you can tell, we look quite alike. About the new frontier. There are about 3 presentations in one, so we're going to go quite quickly on this. There they are, James and Ellen White, with 2 of their children. Now, they were investors in technology. These heroes invested much of their own wealth, or the little they had, when they were yet in their 20s, trying to build something of their family. They invested in technology. The latest technology at the time was printing, and so they invested in that. And so I would like to go through this journey of technology, if you would follow that with me. So in the 1840s, they invested in printing, as you will see here. Ta-da! Printing. Because a lot of people were reading back then, and so they thought this is where we should be. Then, in the 1920s came the radio. But here is the interesting thing. When you do media right, when a new frontier arrives, when a new technology arrives, it doesn't do away with the previous one, quite the opposite. It increases the potential of the previous technology. It enhances it. It creates a thicker line. More people read when done right. Then, what do you think came in the 1980s quite heavily that we explored? It didn't come, television. Now, when a new technology comes, generally, not just Adventists, but all of the Christian people, we immediately call the new technology and we say, television, that's from the devil. And the devil says, is it really mine? I better use it then. Good. We dedicate every new technology to the devil first. And then he uses it really well, and we scratch our heads and say, everybody's using it. We better use it too. And then we're always, if you're familiar with surfing, the wave has passed, and we're always swimming desperately after it. And generally, it is not the official institution that starts a new revolution. It was HMS Richards that came with radio. It was one pastor who started with television. And eventually we caught on, and television came through in the 80s. Now I ask you today, what is the new frontier? What do you think it is? Is it the internet? Could it be iPads? Computers, perhaps? No. It is none of the above. As it happens, the new frontier today, it will come, is gaming. And if done properly, gaming should not take over previous technologies, but enhance every single one of them. Through gaming, more people should be watching television and listening to the radio and reading. Now, if you don't think this is a positive trend, just think of the BBC. Because when television came out, they increased their radio capacities, and more people are reading physical books in the UK now than they have in the history of the United Kingdom. More books have been sold last year than previously. Just something for you to think about. So why am I saying that games are the new frontier? Is this such a powerful thing? Should we invest in games, or are games from the devil? I do not believe they are. And why am I suggesting that games are the new frontier? Now, some data for you, because it's always good to start with data. It gives some kind of authority to the claim. So here we go. The average millennial, can you read? Right, there goes the presentation. But okay, I'll read it for you. The average millennial will play over 10,000 hours of video games by the time they're 21 years old. 10,000 hours by the time they are 21 years old. They will play more than they will eat, talk to others, go to school, and anything else. Playing is what they do. This is the average. Next, by the end of this decade, the Earth will host 1.5 billion active and interconnected gamers. Every research conducted indicates that games are the most engaging medium of digital storytelling. You're not just hearing the story, you are part of it. 82% of UK households play video games. 82%. That's 4 out of every 5 households play video games at a combined average of 22 hours per week. It is a part-time job to play. People take this duty very seriously. It is a calling. See what I did there? Call of duty. Anyway. What? Games? And here are 2 questions I would like to pose for you. Can we afford to ignore a new generation eager to hear an epic story? For this is what gamers are very good at. They want to hear an epic story. And secondly, and it took me a week to come up with this sentence. It's long, but check this out. How could we fail to engage with the most engaging medium of digital storytelling when we have a mission to tell the only story truly worth telling? How can we ignore a medium that is built for storytelling when our mission is really to tell a story, the only story truly worth telling? So I would like to coin a term in this new frontier. And this term is sacred gaming. And I hope it sticks. Sacred gaming. Games that have been dedicated to the sole purpose of telling the only story truly worth telling. Every game has a beginning. And Heroes is a game that was launched last year. I'll tell you more about it. But I went to a lecture at the London School of Economics by a woman called Herta von Stiegel, who was launching this book called The Mountain Within. She's an Adventist who is one of my heroes, an incredible woman who has direct contacts with many world leaders. And in this book, she says that we have a crisis in the world, and this is a crisis of leadership. And this is in general in the world, and in my conversations with her, she mentioned that our crisis within a church level and outside is a crisis of leadership. We have many managers, but few leaders. And as I progressed to look at it, I've made a conscious decision not to be a manager, and I said, I want to lead. And following the reading of this book, which I highly recommend to you, I called a few disciples, and we started a ministry, a company together that would have the purpose of creating games. Now, we were very quiet for 2 years, because remember, games are from the devil, so we decided to invest our time, our energy, a lot of money to create the first game, and only when it was ready, we created 3 games, but the first 2 were not good enough to launch, so the third one was, and it all came from reading this book, which propelled us to do something. So I highly suggest that you read it. Heroes. This is the game that was launched last year. And Heroes is not so much what it is. The real thing is what it represents, this new frontier that we are crossing. So let me give you a little bit of how the concept came about. I was called in a couple of years ago to go to Hong Kong at another GAiN conference there to deliver another talk, and that was entitled, What the Church Could Learn from Steve Jobs. Now, as if you knew me, you would know I'm absolutely obsessed with Apple and all things Apple. So I don't want to start a war, but I am. Deal with it. So knowing this, Steve had just died, and so they asked me, could the church learn anything from this man? And in my research, I studied more for that talk than for my whole master's dissertation, which I did right here at Newbold. And in the process of that talk, there was a particular part of it that was really powerful to me. Steve started this company called Apple. He was kicked out of Apple. And when he came back to Apple, as Apple was dying, he said, of course it's dying. We've got 2,000 employees who are making computers without knowing why they're making computers. Apple has no identity anymore. And I thought, as a pastor, I know exactly what he's talking about. Most of my members have no identity. They come to church without knowing why they're coming to church. They're Adventists without knowing why they're Adventist. May I suggest to you that our greatest crisis is a crisis of identity. We are failing to pass on to a new generation who we are. In fact, we don't even know exactly who we are. Our crisis is a crisis of identity. And then Steve said, reinstilling identity is easy. You just need to remind people of who their heroes are. It all made sense to me. I am who I am because my mom took the time to tell me every story there was about the biblical heroes and about the heroes of Adventism, the pioneers. I am who I am because I know who my heroes are. And I realized that this generation has no idea who the biblical heroes are. I realized that the favor that we did to a new generation is that we have sanitized the biblical stories. We have created versions of these heroes that are not heroes at all. We have created a David that is 12 years old and anemic, a little boy who is not capable of even holding a spear. Now that's not a hero that I would follow or even admire or want to be part of his story. Our children prefer to be Goliath than to be the hero David. We have to go back to the Bible and reread those stories. And so we thought, let's revisit the Bible. Let's point this new generation back to the Word because they need to understand those stories, the rawness of the stories, including the difficult parts that we want to shy away from. The parts that many of us wish were not there, if we are honest with ourselves. It is the Word. Let's explore it. And we, as a team, wanted to be very proud of our Adventist heritage. We see that there is an underlying movement that wants to say, yeah, we were like this, but we want to be different. Yes, we have grown. Praise God for that. But we want to honor the stories of the men and women that started this movement and gave everything so that this message could arrive and be where it is today. And those stories cannot be forgotten. God called them to be heroes, and they became, like He calls us to be heroes, and we should become. So the early design, and we spent a lot of money on this design, were designs like this. This is Abraham. And we thought, let's go with the safe idea. So we went with Abraham like this. Beautiful paintings, absolutely fantastic. Original drawings that were made by an artist. And we looked at it. And then we came to an absolute genius called Neil Alwan, here from London. And we came to him and said, look, this is what we're thinking. Would you design the user interface for us? And he said, yes, but you've got to get rid of all your designs. I need to do it all over again. I said, listen, I'm just contracting you to do this. And he said, I don't do contracts. If I'm entering this thing, it's to change the world. I thought, I could work with this guy. And on his own back, he decided that he was going to give 4 characters so we could see. When we saw the first character, he said, I'm going to do Abraham just so you have an idea of what I'm talking about. And then we got this. And we felt really bad for wasting 8,000 pounds on the previous designs. But there was no turning back. When we saw Abraham with muscles, rah! We realized that these are heroes. Now, Abraham probably didn't have muscles like this. Let's be honest. The guy was 75 when he was called, right? Do you know what I mean? But this is an image. It's a picture of a hero. It's what it represents, not what it is. It's not a depiction of reality. It's an image. Then we thought we need to touch the geeks. So Daniel came into being, right? The intelligent Daniel. And then King David. Rah! King David was the man. And John, do not mess with John, the son of thunder. Every hero has a name. David is Giant Slayer, John, Son of Thunder. And then my favorite, this is Mary Magdalene, Tomb Raider. Poe is Globetrotter, and then you have Ruth. And Ruth is Wise Widow. And if you read the biblical story, she was a very naughty girl. But I suggest you read it very closely. Now, we have some new heroes that are not in the game yet. If you download it, you will not see them. But I would like to preview them for the first time to the world apart from Newbold, who has seen them before. But to the rest of the world, here they are. This is Noah, the big guy. And then you have Moses and Jacob. And if you could actually see the screen properly, you would see Jacob has a scar on his left leg. So the game was launched in August last year, and how did it do so far? Here are some of the stats for you. And of course, we did no advertising, and this is an old picture. I can see more countries have come in since then. We've got 119 countries as of yesterday, 21,612 players, and the data that's really important to us, 955,545 minutes of interaction with the biblical narrative. So we are coming up to 1 million minutes of interaction with the biblical narrative. Now, where do you think in the world people are interacting the most? They're playing the most? Brazil? Okay. Now, Brazil downloads the most. It's in Portuguese, Spanish, English, and Danish. And there are 12 more languages to come. It's actually the Middle East. The Middle East is playing the longest. People are just addicted the most to it. They play for the average session in the Middle East is close to 3 minutes compared to 1.5 minutes in the US. So the gameplay is very simple. You've got 60 seconds to answer as many questions as you possibly can about these heroes. You collect points, and you also collect mana. See what we did there? Mana. And the more mana you collect, you swap mana for effects. There are 4 effects. The first one is the Jonah effect. You get to skip the question like he tried to skip the mission. Then you have the Jesus effect that takes away your 3 wrong answers, and he shows you the way with the right answer. Then you have the Joshua effect that gives you more time, like he had more time in battle. And my favorite, the Lazarus effect. When you die, you get a second chance. When I was explaining it to somebody recently, I said, the Joshua, the Lazarus effect. And he said, what, you get locked out of the game for 4 days? No. That's not it. Although we did think about it. 80% of gamers are social gamers. So you can compare your score immediately on Facebook. And this created some people playing all night trying to beat my score. Which Vili successfully did. In the future, we have Heroes events. So if you want to take heroes to your place, you can run events in your own church, in your own conference, in your own union, where you have different teams that you can play. So you can have, in your union, you can have each conference becomes a team, and people defend that team. In your church, you can have teams of 4, give them names, and then when people log in with your code that we will give you, then they will be able to select their team and defend their team vigorously within the questions. That's coming up in June. Android version, as soon as the General Conference actually sends the funds through, we will have it ready by July if they send it through in the next few weeks. So Android is coming too. Now, how this refers to evangelism, it's very simple, the concept. Once we have 5,000 people in London playing, for example, we send a geosensitive push notification to the people in London saying the hero, or let me take your example, for instance. So Forest Lake in Orlando, right? So in Orlando, 5,000 people playing. The heroes are coming to Orlando in 3 weeks 2 weeks, 1 week. Push notifications to everybody living in that area. The heroes are coming to Orlando tonight. And then you give the address. They unlock, see some videos. And then at the moment where it starts, you send the same push notification for people that did not come, and they can watch live, and you invite them to come eventually to a Heroes event. Now, the purpose of the Heroes event is to invite them to a Heroes series. Now, a Heroes series is simply an invitation that your members give to their friends to come over. Now, here are some other statistics. 14% of people trust advertisements, 90% peer recommendation. I got this from Vili. The numbers don't add up. I don't see how they work, but it's, you know, it's part of a larger research. So the question was asked, do you believe in advertisements? So only 14% of people said yes. And do you believe in peer recommendation? And 90% of them said, I believe in that. And this is what it's based for. So the Heroes Evangelism idea is you run a series in your church and you get all of the people in your church to issue an invitation. So this is how it works. It's worked in London already, and it's being done in Dublin, Hagerstown, and a few other places in the world right now. It's very simple. You ask your members to pray for 3 friends. You get your members to hang out with them, which is already happening. Then you issue them with an invitation, and inside the invitation they write. Let's say the friend's name is Robert. Dear Robert, it would mean a lot to me if you came. Full stop, Sam, or their name. Don't say anything, because people don't like talking about Jesus or inviting their friends to church. It's weird. So don't ask them to say anything. Just write this card and give it. And we understand that this works because we've tried it and it really, really works. Would you not go to someone else's church if you got a card like this from somebody that is your friend? You probably would. Then there is this thing called the Bible Academy, a 7-week Bible study course that we invite them to. And then you walk them into the waters of baptism. More details on that, you can talk to me afterwards. Now, this is the series that we run in Wimbledon, the church that I was pastoring at the time. This was last year. And these are the results. We were expecting 30 visitors to come through this. We had 135. If you're not from London, let me tell you something. To get 135 visitors in a series is a miracle. All because of this one sentence. It would mean a lot to me if you came. That was the sentence. Then we are expecting 7 people to subscribe to the Bible Academy. We had 38, of which 11 were baptized last year. There were 6 more in April, and some of them were indigenous British. Again, another miracle. If you want to download the GAiN, please do so here. And these are the details for you to like and download the GAiN. It's free, and hopefully will always be. I would just like to give you a 1-minute preview of the future and where we see this going. And then I would like Vili to tell you in 1 minute if you want to get involved in Europe. Vili is the director for Heroes in Europe, and he will tell you how to be involved. So where do we see this going in the future? Well, this is kind of it. The next game we want to release is called The Last Messengers, and this is honoring the history of Adventism especially. We believe that once our people have a strong sense of identity, then wonderful things will happen. So just an example of that, this is Captain Joseph Bates. He was a captain, and Daryl, whom you've had presentations from or will do, he is part of our core team. And the vision came from him in doing this particular, taking in this particular direction, and it's wonderful. This is, if you can see the screen, kind of how we see this 3D world where you explore the hero and you live as Joseph Bates or any of the other characters. And as you explore the world, then you learn their stories and you live like them and you make mistakes and you come back and forwards and so on. And we have a storyline that is happening. This is the unfortunate thing. It would take $20 to $30 million to do it. So we're looking for various venture capitalist firms who are willing to sponsor this. There are 2 in California that we're going to sit with by the end of this year, and 1 in London to do a prototype. Nobody gives $20 million to anybody. So to have a prototype first and then see where we take it from there. So this is Heroes. I would like to call Vili now, just to let you know how to get involved in Europe, in translation and others. Please.
Anyway, I'll speak loud enough so you can hear. Something that Sam didn't mention, that we're dealing with two separate entities here, but they are very well connected, the GAiN and the evangelistic strategy. At Newbold, for instance, we are implementing now just the evangelistic strategy. However, very soon we're going to have competitions with the GAiN, where we're going to involve the pathfinders, the adventurers, and the youth. So if you would like to know more, because time is running by, come to speak with us. I am dealing with Europe generally, and hopefully Asia soon. We have the game translated as of today in Portuguese, Spanish, Hungarian, Romanian. Danish is already out, and Dutch is coming in a couple of weeks. We are looking to also to translate the game in all languages spoken in Europe. We have Czech, Slovakian, Russian, Ukrainian coming up soon. So if you want the game translated in your language, and your language was not listed in what I just said, please come to speak with me. And if you would like to organize events, either competitions for your youth or not so young people, as Delwyn just said, you will be surprised to see grandmothers and grandfathers playing Heroes on their tablets. Just this week, I shared the game with someone here in this campus, and she said, no, I don't want my kids to waste time playing games. Have you tried Heroes? No, I don't want to hear about Heroes. Just try it. Take my phone. And by the time I was leaving her office, she was still playing. Next day I said, what's your score? Oh, don't ask me. You know, my daughter just beat me last night. So if you would like to organize events, either competitions or implement the evangelistic strategy in Europe, please come to speak with me. I can give you a few tips. I can come to your location if necessary. Sam, thank you.
All right. Thank you.